is AI-driven development changing both the cost and frequency of outages compared to the past?
What seems to be happening, and this has been an age-old problem, these prototypes, these
Mm,
POCs, make it to production very readily because they work very quickly. It's human nature. When a problem
mm,
first needs to be solved, it's of the highest priority. Now you've got something that wasn't necessarily designed well. It didn't take into consideration all the human factors of scaling, all the how do you operate it. And so
mm,
if it gets to production, you get a higher cognitive load on the human, and there's
mm.
these unrealized problems that then take longer to solve, and they can occur more often.
If we have to look ahead to the end of 2026, AI-driven development will become the standard. For CTOs and CIOs listening to this conversation, what is the one thing they should focus on this year to ensure that innovation does not become chaotic?
Observability isn't an option.
Hmm.
It's you, without observability, you can't make your AI strategy work. It's the
Hmm.
only way you're going to be able to see inside these agentic black boxes and this long chain of dependencies that you are going to be creating in your technology stack. So to the extent that if it's not observed, then it's rogue, right? And
Mhm.
that's not something you can run into production. So
Yeah.
um, centralizing, consolidating, getting that full picture is a must. And we can already see that, the regulations like the EU AI Act or the ISO, I think it's 42001, like you're
Hmm.
not even going to be allowed, if you want to be compliant, to be able to operate AI solutions without the right level of observability.
Welcome back to the Tech Transform podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Shubhangi Dua, and I will be your host for this episode. I'm the podcast producer and a B2B tech journalist at EM360 Tech. This episode, I am joined by Manesh Tailor, EMEA Field Chief Technology Officer. As a technology leader, he collaborates closely with businesses on improving operational resilience, improving developer efficiencies, and modernizing observability practices. So, welcome, Manesh. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Today, we'll discuss what actually happens when AI driven and wipe coded software moves quickly and malfunctions. We'll discuss why outages are becoming more common and costly, how AI is creating new blind spots inside contemporary systems, and why full stack observability, AI monitoring, and AI ops are becoming crucial as we approach 2026 and beyond. So, thanks for joining us, Manesh. It's great to have you back on the show in the new year. So let's get started by setting the agenda for this episode. What is the ultimate message you want to get out to the audience?
It's very simply, if you don't get your observability house in order, then all the grand plans that you may have with all the innovation AI can offer may be at some major risk. And hopefully, our conversation, I'll be able to justify that very strong statement.
I'm sure you will. And, with that, everyone's been talking about AI and speed right now. Teams are building tools faster than ever, often using AI generated code, also known as wipe coding, I suppose. Not a lot of this code actually makes it to production. So, based on what you see daily, what is going wrong behind the scenes? What is the problem that leaders are unaware of?
Yeah. Look, and I take this viewpoint both from within, working with customers in various organizations, also what we see with some of our partners and our own company as well. Um, Look, there's this almost growing trend, if you like, of we can build a solution and work our way out of any problem.
Hmm.
So, whereas in the past you would often think, okay, I've got this problem to solve, what tools, what solutions, you research the market. Whereas today, it feels easier because you understand your problem, you understand your context, and you can, without having
Hmm.
a team of engineers, go off and create these things. And so there are more solutions in organizations than the time and the due diligence spent looking for the right solution. That so speed has been favored over good governance, engineering standards, and I'd use the analogy, almost if at home you had a number of tradesmen available to you,
Hmm.
almost to your heart's content. You can have engineers, you can have electricians, plumbers, you can have builders. You could get a lot of things done in your house very quickly. But
Hmm.
would you ask them to build a 4-story extension which your family's going to live? Probably not, without doing the right weight calculations. So there's a lot of things being built, but are they being built the right way?
So I guess everybody is after quick wins, but nobody's looking at the big win, which is the ultimate goal you want. So speed is not everything. Do your quality checks is like what I'm getting from here.
Exactly.
So this leads me to my next question. When things do go wrong, the impact is obviously massive. Your research has also shown that high impact outages in EMEA cost is a median of 102 million annually, if I'm not wrong. And with many organizations actually losing over 1 million per hour. How is AI driven development changing both the cost and frequency of outages compared to the past?
Many of these new ideas get built very quickly.
Hmm.
What seems to be happening, and this has been an age-old problem, but maybe more so now, is that these prototypes, these
Hmm.
POCs, make it to production very readily, right? Because they work very quickly. And it's human nature. When a problem
Hmm.
first needs to be solved, it's of the highest priority. In the
Yes.
past, by the time you put the effort and energy into figuring out how are you going to solve it, put the weight behind the spear to then go and solve it, the problem might have degraded in terms of its importance, right? Whereas
Hmm.
today, problem occurs, the solution is quick, and these things get out into production super, super fast. And so now you've got something that wasn't necessarily designed well. It didn't take into consideration all the human factors of scaling, all the how do you operate it. And so
Hmm.
if it gets to production, you get a higher cognitive load on the human, and there's
Hmm.
these unrealized problems that then take longer to solve, and they can occur more often.
A bit unrelated, but it reminds me of the elder child syndrome. Someone who's super solution oriented and is like, okay, let's just enact this. Oh, this is the problem. Let's just do this. And you're not taking a step back to think, to look at the whole picture and patiently review everything and, maybe potentially devise a new strategy, something that you may not even have thought of as a solution in the past. So, on paper, AI should essentially make systems that are smarter and more efficient, but in reality, it seems to create more blind spots. Why is it harder for teams to understand what is happening in their own systems? Where do traditional monitoring tools start to really fail?
Yeah. I, in my mind, the way we've been building software has been changing over time, and increasing, the level of change has been um, expedited.
Hmm.
When we think about how we build software today, we moved to a microservice type architecture. We started
Hmm.
to use more SaaS-based components.
Yeah.
Effectively, the way you design and build software has changed to become more fragmented anyway.
Hmm.
Now, with the advent of many more solutions, and many more solutions that haven't had to be designed from ground up to fit the ecosystem of your existing tech stack or existing architecture. Also, these AI developed solutions may have less knowledge about how it was
Hmm.
built, how it was designed. The fragmentation is increasing in
Hmm.
um, at multiple layers, if you like. So
Hmm.
you've got more solutions, more technology, more unknowns, all moving faster. and that's generated more data, more noise, and that creates an escalation in terms of the types of problems that you have and the blind spots. And so this is where observability comes in, and no longer is it about observability in its silo, because you've got so many dependencies that are occurring here.
Of course, like with that, there's so much data, and data quality is key. So would you could you paint me a picture of like this particular scenario in a company where they've missed out on some of these like key blind spots, like the most common ones, and then how you would go about it? Well, how would you approach it?
Yeah. Okay. Um, I'd answer that by blind spots occur because if you've got the monitoring mentality. So monitoring was about known knowns, and you're typically looking at components that you want to understand better. Very important, but in a world you've understood and scoped and designed from ground up. Observability is about those unknown unknowns, this understanding the relationship between these things that are occurring here and now, and those relationships changing over time. And so, you know, I think about the workflow we used to have. We used to have alerts for things that we knew about. Then you've got humans thinking, okay, well, this system was dependent upon that. I need this additional bit of information. The
Hmm.
thought process was to gather the information you knew you had to gather,
Hmm.
work through the flow of what you might have to do to fix these things, which were improved with experience and time and good
Hmm.
documentation. But
Hmm.
now, as things are moving and changing so fast, and you don't know all these things, even more so than what monitoring allowed you to do before, you you've got the risk. And in fact, it's not even a risk. You've got the guarantee of more blind spots.
We see a lot of unstructured data being leveraged now with AI. Does that also create new problems for in terms of observability and how platforms are detecting new problems?
Yeah, I mean, there's an entire area of observability, which is around observing the data inside of these systems. So
Mm,
the structure of the data, the quality of the data, and that's got its own category of data observability. Um,
mm,
it's a very important part, right? Where you deal with
mm,
structured and unstructured data, and how do you mine it? How do you make sure
mm.
it's accurate? That's not something that we take a huge amount of um, emphasis on with what we help with, but it is definitely a parallel practice that is absolutely of vital importance to companies.
So let's talk about solutions now. When organizations transition from basic monitoring to full stack observability, what changes practically are seen, and how does this I would say, how does this assist teams in detecting issues more quickly, managing risk from AI generated code, and even reducing outage costs, sometimes by even half, I think?
Yeah. So we need to think about automating and leveraging AI to some extent here,
Hmm.
automating what humans did in the past in terms of a practice, and make that faster
Hmm.
in those unknown situations. So again, I go back to the idea of when we had component monitoring and we had alerts, we look for those signals, and you would then go and gather more information. You would go through a workflow of collecting what was relevant for you to make an informed decision.
Hmm.
Now, with these things moving so fast, we have to leverage things like retrieval augmented generation, right? So RAG. So
Hmm.
go and pull
Hmm.
more data at the right time from
Hmm.
these systems of knowledge and systems of record,
Hmm.
and augment that such that you are arming these experts and operators to make informed decisions. Now, we may get to a point, and we will get to a point in the future, where you can even automate more of those repeated based actions.
Hmm.
But for me, it's all about still keeping with the gather the right information, but gather more information in an automated fashion, because
Hmm.
there are there are these things that we don't know about.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I think it's very important to make sure that you not just look out for the familiar issues, because there might be so much going on that you don't know about, especially because AI is to a certain extent unpredictable.
That it is.
So we're also seeing almost a universal adoption coming. 96% companies planning AI monitoring and 84% actually planning AI ops by 2028. And those are big numbers. To be honest, a little bit expected considering the rapid pace of it, but those are massive numbers. And how do these capabilities move teams from being reactive to proactive? I'll break that down into two questions. So let's answer the first one. How do you advise company from going from reactive to a more proactive approach?
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point earlier, we've definitely moved beyond the experimentation phase and pretty quickly in terms of time period. And so companies are requiring uh, guardrails in place to be able to
Mm,
operate these platforms at scale and in production. Um, Historically we looked at things like golden signals and known patterns. So that was very much the reactive, because again, there were known knowns. You know what to look
mm,
for, you recognize the patterns, and then you react based upon them.
yeah.
But in such a fast moving space where the technology, the systems you're building are changing so much. In fact, we have to leverage AI to help us be proactive, because
Mm,
these machine learning algorithms, AI, machine learning, call it what you want, the good maths allows us to establish baselines much faster in a world that it didn't need to understand in the way that we understood things like golden signals before. So that first part around, getting from reactive to proactive is learning from what we knew, but
mm.
leveraging AI and technology to actually help us do that in a much faster way.
That's a very fair point. And I heard you mention earlier, call it whatever you want, AI or machine learning. I remember going to Big Data London last year where when I asked a question about Gen AI and AI, because that's what you're constantly seeing, especially for the past 2 years. The analyst, he was like, firstly, it's not AI, it's machine learning. Can we just refer to it as the right, like, that's the correct terminology. Please do not call it AI. But that's like a marketing term now, isn't it? Though, like,
Yeah,
so
I suppose the hype is all around Gen AI, right?
yeah.
But the ability to use data in a way that's helping us, to do all these amazing things. I mean, it is
Mm,
good maths, and maths can be
mm,
applied in many different forms, and Gen AI is just one form of
yeah.
maths being applied, right? So we mustn't get hung up on just that being AI.
For sure, for sure. So, can you share an example of how AI monitoring or AI ops prevents problems before customers ever feel them?
Yeah. Yes. So in fact, I'll take our own, customer zero example.
Mm,
At New Relic, we have 85,000 businesses that rely on us. That's
wow.
the number of customers, and they're
Wow.
engaging with our platform, sending us vast sums of data, looking at their own information, using our platform as their observability, their eyes and ears. New Relic itself has to operate at massive scale to service our
Mm,
customers. We can't afford to be down. We can't afford to have those hiccups, because that's then leaving our customers in a vulnerable and blind position.
mm,
So in order to operate our platform, we have an instance of New Relic monitoring our production instance of New Relic. And if you
mm,
can imagine, we've got all these SREs, we've got operations teams that have to manage our platform, scale our platform as we invest in new technology and new solutions that we offer our customers. We have to make sure all of that works and operates and scale, including adopting AI and providing AI capabilities in our platform. So we have invested time, effort, and energy in building our own SRE agent.
Mm,
These, this agent takes all the signal data, takes all the uh, information we have about our production instance of New Relic, and makes judgments on what might be going off course, what might go wrong in the future, what actions should we take to prevent that situation from escalating to a point whereby we see a customer facing impact, and automating that. We still run many of these things in like a human collaboration perspective. So say, hey, I've seen
mm.
this, I detect XYZ is happening, and maybe you want to put this in place to prevent that. But more and more of that is and will get automated. So yeah, that's the future, is leveraging AI,
Mm.
leveraging the good maths. And yeah, our SRE agent is something that we're going to be providing to our customers based upon how well it's been working for us.
So you're saying that New Relic is prepared for the unfamiliar, backed by not just AI, but keeping humans in the loop.
Exactly. Yeah, there's still so much knowledge and experience our teams have had, right? We've been operating this platform for well over a decade. A machine can learn a lot, but
Mm.
that knowledge, that experience, and helping to
Mm.
make the right decisions is vital.
If we have to look ahead to the end of 2026, AI driven development will become the standard, of course. For CTOs and CIOs listening to this conversation, what is the one thing they should focus on this year to ensure that innovation does not become chaotic?
Yeah. So I'll go back to my opening statement. Look, observability isn't an option, right?
Mm.
It's you, without observability, you can't make your AI strategy, whatever it is, work. It's the
Mm.
only way you're going to be able to see inside these agentic black boxes and this long chain of dependencies that you are going to be creating in your technology stack. So to the extent that if it's not observed, then it's rogue, right? And
Mhm.
that's not something you can run into production. So
Yeah.
um, centralizing, consolidating, getting that full picture is a must. And we can already see that, the regulations like the EU AI Act or the ISO, I think it's 42001, like you're
Mm.
not even going to be allowed, if you want to be compliant, to be able to operate AI solutions without the right level of observability. So that's my takeaway statement: is get the observability house in order. Otherwise, you will limit the ability to which you can benefit from your AI strategy.
You don't want this issue to cost you a multi-million dollars for sure, and not just only in terms of keeping your data quality in check and making sure numbers are correct, observability is on point, but you also want observability for the sake of preventing your AI agents from going rogue in the future. And in a way, you're also protecting cybersecurity. Not that we're talking about it, but that's how I am perceiving it. Am I wrong? Or
No, that's right. These are all, you know, different elements of the same problem, right?
Hmm.
Whether it be security, whether it be compliance, whether it be uptime, whether it be, all of these things are there to serve you and your
Hmm.
organization in providing that excellent customer experience, right? And having the insight is it's all related.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much, Manesh, for joining us today. It was great to have you on. And I believe we had a great conversation over observability in AI. Also, thank you to everyone listening. We hope you took a lot away from today's podcast. For further information on what we've talked about, please head over to newrelic.com. We'll be back next week with another episode in our podcast series. Until then, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on all major platforms and follow the conversation on our socials at EM360 Tech and on X and LinkedIn. And for more great daily content, head over to em360tech.com. Thank you.